Teach us, Lord, to be masters of ourselves, that we might be the servants of others. Take our hands and work through them. Take our minds and think through them. Take our lips and speak through them. Take our hearts and set them on fire. For Christ's sake. Amen. I know what you're thinking. But let me assure you, I am wearing more than you are. And so I'm hotter than you are. Just for the next 8 minutes or so, think of the cooling breezes coming in off the lake, and we'll all be just fine. Pray again with me, if you will, these words we heard from the letter of Paul to the Romans. Anyone who does not have the Spirit of God does not belong to him. Just about exactly 26 years ago, on the first day of July of the year 2000, I began my very first paid job in ordained ministry. I had been ordained as a deacon that May, and on July 1st, when pretty much every academic appointment begins in America, I started a new job as chaplain to undergraduates in a big university. I worked at the big university church, and I was given status as a resident scholar, and that meant I had permission to live in one of the undergraduate houses on campus. I lived in a place called Adams House, and so I had 400 neighbors, all of whom were between the ages of 19 and 22. So I started out this idea of ordained ministry quite literally living the job that I was in. The people who were supposed to be my care and concern were the people I ate with every day and walked with on the sidewalks to campus and sat in the library with. When you live in a community like that, you're a lot more like the village priest than you are like the rector of an Episcopal church. You're the person wearing a collar in the midst of a community that for the most part is not Christian and is not interested. You live among people who are Muslim and Jewish and Baha'i and Mormon and Roman Catholic and Evangelical Baptist and agnostic and atheist, and for the most part, all of them are confused to one extent or another. It's that time of your life when everything is growing, everything is changing, everything is being questioned. It's a season of searching that pretty much all of us who have ever been 19 to 22 years old can remember. Each ministry brings with it a distinct set of frequent themes and challenges. That is true for Michael and for Richard, and it will be true for Lisa, just as there was a different set of themes and challenges that she found at St. James's in Groveland, Massachusetts. As a college chaplain, one of those dominant themes was a particular challenge that was faced by nearly every student I knew who came to faith in those years. Now, I understand, I'm not making any great claims here. We did not have flocks of undergraduates coming to us to get baptized at the university church. But pretty much everyone who did ended up having the same experience. For whatever reason in their life, and there were a lot of reasons, suddenly, something in them had been open to the presence of God in their life. We would talk and pray, and they would start showing up at church, and then, by gosh, sooner or later, they would come to be baptized in that church. And they would have such joy and such energy and such excitement about what they had found in the community they had discovered, in the awakening of this idea of their spiritual life, that of course they would do what any of us would do if we found something amazing. They started talking about it with other people. And when they did, remember, they were living with 400 of their neighbors from 19 to 22 years old in the same compressed space, right in their building. This is not like living in a building in Paris like I do, where you never see the neighbors that you share your space with. This is walking and talking and studying with the very same people all day, every day. And you can just guess what would happen. They would effervesce about what they had found. They would eagerly tell people about it over lunch or study breaks or tutoring sessions or orchestra rehearsals or lab sections. And what they got back from all of those conversations was, well, let's just say, not always that affirming. Sometimes their friends would politely listen to what they had to share. Sometimes they would just be ridiculed. Sometimes people of other faiths, and usually other Christians, would question whether they had found, in fact, the right path. But most of the time, what they got for all of that conversation was just a yawn. And every one of those conversations I ever had with them, and people who'd had that experience, would end up pretty much like this. Here is this thing I have found that has given me meaning. It is so important to me, but why can't anybody else see how wonderful it is? How come I found this, and when I try to share it, the people I really care about just aren't interested or don't get it? Those conversations were almost always painful. It was like having your family reject the person that you brought home as the new partner you had fallen in love with. When you have something wonderful, you want to share it. And when what you share is not accepted, it can make you sad. Or it can even make you question whether what you have found is actually that wonderful after all. That first gathering of Christians in the church in Rome is having a collective experience sort of like each one of those undergraduates. That is the group St. Paul is writing to. He's writing to them in their midst of their confusion and their frustrations that people are just not being won over by the good news they have to share. Some people get it, some people are curious, but most people are just indifferent, or worse. And if you know anything about ancient Rome, worse for Christians could be really bad indeed. Paul is teaching them that the change that is made in us in baptism is way more profound than we think. We seem to be the same people before and after we are baptized. We look the same in the mirror in the morning. But Paul says we have quite literally become a different kind of creature in the universe. We have become members of the Spirit of God and not mere creatures of flesh anymore. We look and talk and move in the world just like everybody else, so we can pretty easily forget the difference that has been made in us. But that difference is immense. Paul is teaching them and teaching us that not everyone we share this message with will hear it. Not everyone who is invited will accept. As the deacon reminded me this morning, Catherine Jefferts Schor used to say, the door is open and the light is on, but that does not mean anybody's coming in. And that can be a very hard message for us to hear, much less to accept. We say of ourselves that we are welcoming and affirming of all people, no matter who they are. We have heard the gospel's message that God draws no distinction between Jew or Greek, slave or free, male or female. And after 20 centuries of drawing distinctions of our own, we have finally realized that the very same God who draws no distinction between any of us also draws no distinction based on the color of our skin or the size of our bank account or the kind of people we choose to love. We are a church that is trying as faithfully as we can to live out the crazy possibility that the Bible actually means what it says when it says that absolutely each individual human is made in the image and likeness of God. And because we believe that, we are drawing the logical conclusion that no one is somehow less deserving of God's grace than any other person, at least not on the basis of who they are. Now, of course, that does not mean that anything we do is acceptable to God, but that is a sermon for a different day. It does mean that the truth we have found here, the truth that has been revealed to us, and the Spirit into which we have been received by baptism is the truth that every one of us is equally precious in the sight of God. That is the message we have received, and it is the seed of that message, the seed that flourishes into new people of the Spirit, that we spread into the world around us here. And I don't know if you have noticed this, but the ground around here is pretty hard. Now remember, I'm not speaking of the pavement beneath your feet. The parable that Jesus teaches us this morning talks about hard earth and rocky ground and thorns and good soil. But remember, all of it, all that he's talking about is in one place only, and that is each individual human heart. The heart is the place where the seed of the Spirit is planted. That was true for every one of us here. It is true for the 4 people who are coming forward to be confirmed in their faith today, and for John, who will be received here today. Each one of us, for reasons we had nothing to do with, finally were blessed with a heart in which that seed could take root and grow. And so, of course, we, in our turn, want to become sowers of that seed as well. Don't be discouraged when you find rocks and thorns and hard ground in the hearts of the people around us. Because sometimes the power of God's love exercised through us can transform even rocks into good soil. And each human heart is born with that possibility. But God knows, and we must understand that not every heart will be good soil. Any farmer will tell you, you can't raise a crop everywhere, no matter how hard you try. Our business is the planting and the tending. And just because there is a lot of hard earth around us out there does not ever mean we can stop sowing. So let us tend God's field. Let us search for the good soil in the hearts around us, and let us always, always be ready to share the seed of the Spirit with those around us. Amen.